All right, Darin. On our short circuit episode, we did a game, and you got all the answers right. And so I want to kind of do another game, and I want to see how you can hold up during this one. Okay? It's going to be a typical name that flick kind of game. I'll give you a hint though. We're going to do all Keanu Reeves movies. So every quote that I give you is going to be a quote from a Keanu Reeves movie.
All right.
Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see if you can get this. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Here we go. First quote. Whoa.
That could be so many. I'm going to say Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, though.
That was The Matrix.
Okay. Well, he says it in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, too. Remember when he's on the couch, he says, whoa. So that counts. That counts. We're counting it.
That's your first strike one. You got that one wrong.
Okay.
Next one. Next quote. Whoa!
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
No, that was Point Break.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting them so wrong. I confuse every Keanu Reeves being the same movie. All right.
That's
oh my gosh, I'm terrible at this.
Hold on, you might get this one. Are you ready? Whoa, 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 whoa!
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That was Knock Knock. Knock Knock. Haven't you seen Knock Knock? You've seen Knock Knock.
No. That's the one where he opens the door and there's these two girls that torture and manipulate him for the whole night, right?
Right.
No.
All right, I'll give you one more. One more try. Okay, you ready? This one you'll get. I know you'll get this one. Whoa.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That was Bogus Journey. Bogus Journey. Darin.
Oh my gosh.
You did so good last time, but you got every single one of them wrong this time.
My memory's just, I'm getting old. That's my only explanation for it. Also, he needs to say different things.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That's like quizzing me going like, I'll be back. Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, how am I supposed to know the intonations?
You're right. It wasn't really fair, but I wanted to make sure you got,
Right. I'm fitfully trounced. It's okay. I can take it. I'm humbled by this Keanu Reeves game. And welcome back to NostalgiaCast, where we take a look at childhood favorite films to see if they stand the test of time or if they're past their prime. Just a quick recap of what we did last episode. We did Cobra Kai last time, did we not?
Yeah, we did.
And I remember coming down on it very favorably. I think we talk a lot of times about how nostalgia can be deadly or it can actually be something that's worthwhile. And I think I'm just, especially with season 3 just debuting and seeing, there's a lot of pushback against people saying, this is just nostalgia and what is this? And I'd be okay with that because I know there's a lot of reboots of things and revamps that are just pure nostalgia that don't really work for me. I'd be behind the backlash against Cobra Kai if they didn't consistently deepen their characters and enrich the motivations. And so they come off as 3-dimensional people as opposed to the 2-dimensional avatars of the original Karate Kid. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I felt very similar. However, I am kind of halfway into season 3, and I'm finding that the nostalgia is still there and it's still good, but it's starting to get a little bit annoying. It's almost a little too much now. I'm starting to go, okay, I get it. I get that you keep throwing back these things to the 80s, and that's all fun and good. But I kind of want to just get back into the story with things. I'm still the same place I was before with the kid characters. I'm just done. I don't even want to watch their stories anymore because it's so predictable and just kind of I've seen this a million times. But I still like Daniel and Johnny, so I'm still in it. I still want to see what happens, but and I still overall think it's a well done production. So.
And that's one of the fears. Maybe that's why I haven't started even season 2 yet, because I think I ended season 1 on such a high that I don't want to come down from that. But maybe that's necessary, and the show will kind of has to pull up its britches, so to speak, and refocus. So maybe that's where it needs to go. But yeah, Cobra Kai, again, kind of breaking the rules, but kind of not, since it's a sequel to Karate Kid, a movie that both of us enjoyed as kids. What movie are we talking about today?
Well, today I chose Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure because I've recently seen Face the Music, and so I wanted to revisit that one. So we'll do that, but before we do that, let's watch the trailer.
Now, a motion picture so grand, so magnificent, and so vast, it spans 7,000 years.
No way! Yes way!
But it starts with Bill.
I'm Bill S. Preston!
Who was Joan of Arc? And Ted.
Noah's wife? We're in danger of flunking most heinously tomorrow.
A force from the future.
Can we go anywhere we want at any time?
You can do anything you want.
Is putting history at their fingertips.
Let's reach out and touch someone.
They're traveling through time.
How's it going, Royal Ugly Dudes?
Put them in the Iron Maiden.
Excellent!
Execute them.
Bogus! How's it going, dude?
Spectre, stay au l'air.
And they're making a big impression.
Historical babes.
Now they're home.
Everybody get together, remember who your buddy is.
To trash the 20th century.
You got a live one here.
Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, Napoleon,
We're from history.
Billy the Kid. Oh my God! Joan of Arc, Sigmund Freud,
Tell me about your mother.
You a musician?
Beethoven,
Genghis Khan!
Abraham Lincoln,
Party on, dudes!
Socrates, George Carlin.
We're history.
If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of? 69, dudes!
Bill and Ted's
Excellent! Excellent!
Excellent Adventure.
Party on, dude.
All right, welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Johnny Craddock,
And I'm Darin Lundberg.
and today's episode is going to be Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989, directed by Stephen Herek, director of Critters and Mr. Holland's Opus and The Rocker. Now, I'm not really familiar with his filmography. Are you? Do you know much about Stephen Herek and what he's done and what his what movies he's made?
Well, I know, Mr. Holland's Opus is a good one. Again, there's something with these, he's directed a lot of these Disney type movies, like Three Musketeers, or Young Swords, as they call it, because it's got like the Young Guns cast in it, and Mr. Holland's Opus. I know Critters, I enjoyed that. Disney has this, for especially Mr. Holland's Opus and Three Musketeers, it has this really glossy look that doesn't feel like a real movie a lot of the time. I don't know how to explain that. Even The Sixth Sense kind of had this glossy, kind of Disney-ish feel to it. Again, I don't know if there's a good way to describe that. It's just how it feels when I watch him. And Mr. Holland's Opus is very, it's very episodic, and it's, kind of takes different parts of this guy's life, and it's got a fantastic Richard Dreyfuss performance. Probably one of because the guy he plays 30 to 60 years old, and it's like masterful just with makeup and body motions. But it takes a keen mind. We've talked about that before. I don't know if he's a particularly skilled director or a visual director, but being able to set things in a certain time period and being able to wrangle your actors and make everything believable, that's good direction. And I think that's, he's not Herek's not a terrific, fantastic, visionary director like we talked about, but he's solid. And I think the same thing with Three Musketeers, which is kind of like the anti-Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, where Robin Hood was pictured as a glum, kind of downtrodden, depressing movie, and Three Musketeers goes the cheesy, upbeat route. And so it just depends on. I like it. I like Three Musketeers. I like Robin Hood too. So it just depends on what you're going for. And then, like you said, I think it's Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And then, he's gone on to do some TV like Hawaii Five-0, the reboot of that, and the MacGyver reboot. But other than that, nothing fantastical. But yeah, Herek's a name that I recognize, but not something that I light up when I hear. I'm just, oh yeah, it's this guy that directed Richard Dreyfuss in Mr. Holland's Opus. So
Yeah, for me, it's not really a recognizable name. I never really remembered a movie. Having seen a movie and then seen his name, I thought, oh, it's Stephen Herek. That doesn't even cross my mind when I see these movies that you've mentioned. I I mean, I know he's well known in the community. I mean, he's directed some pretty well known movies. He's been around for a while, and so he's respectable. But like I say, he's not a name per se, like Steven Spielberg or George Lucas or anything.
Yeah.
But still, memorable and known in the community.
Right. Okay.
So,
No, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah.
Got excited about Stephen Herek.
Yeah. Is there more you want to say about him? We can talk more about him if you want.
No, that's it. I mean, that's really all you can. I don't mean to be down on the guy, but that's really all you can talk about. He's directed some solid movies that so that's good, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than you and I.
Yeah, we haven't directed anything, so what can we talk about?
So I wanted to make sure we talked about Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter's career. Both had very different careers after Bill and Ted's, and obviously Bill and Ted's kind of made them both. But Keanu Reeves, more so than Alex Winter. Let's talk about Keanu Reeves first, though. So give me, first of all, your opinion of Keanu Reeves and what you think about him and just his career and what he's been able to accomplish in his career.
Okay, well, I want to tread lightly here because as a person, I admire the hell out of Keanu Reeves. I mean, he's just an all-around. You see him in interviews, you hear stories about him, and he's just an all-around good, centered, kind, not egotistical. I'm sure, like, I know around the time they were making the second Bill and Ted, he was kind of someone described him as being a dick on set just because he was afraid he was going to be typecast and he didn't want to do all this. But I think, especially coming around to Face the Music, he's grateful. He shaved his beard off. He had the beard for the longest time, and him shaving that beard off for Face the Music, you're like, oh, he's taking this seriously. He's just not treating it as a joke. So
you mentioned that he's kind and well liked in Hollywood. I've heard this over and over again that he's the nicest guy in Hollywood. Like, that's how people describe Keanu Reeves, and I think that's pretty good to have that reputation as being the nicest guy.
Yeah,
so that's something he said.
That's hard to do, and there are pictures of him. And fans come up, they want photos of him, and you can find dozens, if not countless pictures of him posing with fans. And when they're female fans, he's got their arms around him, but you can see that his hands are not touching them. His fingers are free of physical contact. And when you see that, it's smart, because in today's day and age, people, the cancel culture and the Me Too, all that stuff, him doing that is very conscious of his image and making sure that he doesn't want to be seen as somebody who's not respectful. So again, I want to tread very lightly because, like I said, I love him to death. And you look at his filmography, and even though he's not the best actor, he really tries to push himself. Like, you look at his filmography, it is varied. Like, he's got Shakespeare, and he's got, Little Buddha, and he had like, Feeling Minnesota or My Own Private Idaho, these independent movies. And he's just trying everything he can, and that's respectful. Even though you watch him in, Much Ado About Nothing or Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you're like, oh man, like he's not suited for this. Like, even in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he's doing the English accent, he still sounds like a surfer dude from California. And so I don't know if that was too early in his career, but we talk about all the time, especially in Speed or The Matrix or now the John Wick movies, where he's the epitome of cool. If he's just asked to stand iconic and be cool, there's nobody like him. Like, and it's impressive, his John Wick, like the choreography and the work that he puts into that stuff. So when he does that, I enjoy him immensely. And even though he's not good per se, good in Much Ado About Nothing and stuff like that, I still admire that he's trying. He's trying to push himself. So what's your go-to opinion on Keanu?
Yeah, I think he has a definite appeal. I think he's very easy to look at. He's kind of fun to watch when he plays those roles, when he does Speed or Matrix, John Wick you mentioned. He's great in those movies, and he is entertaining, and he's fun to watch, and he has that look. And so I like to look at him when he's on screen. It's like I can look at him all day and like, oh, cool looking guy. But like you mentioned too, he does struggle when he tries to push himself, when he does those movies like Bram Stoker's or Much Ado. But they're hard to do. Those are hard roles to play. They're hard to pull off. They're not easy by any stretch. And so like you say, I do respect him for trying, but he does fall short in playing those types of roles. But
right.
He kills it when he's Neo, or John Wick. He kills it. So I can forgive him.
Yeah, or even Ted. Yeah, and he's like you said, he's easy on the eyes, and I think in Much Ado About Nothing and Dracula, we keep mentioning those as like the lower realm of Keanu Reeves performances, but I think it doesn't help when you're up against, you're cast alongside Denzel Washington and Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson, and who are pro Shakespeare people, and even Anthony Hopkins. Like anybody's going to look like a bad actor when you're up against him.
Yeah, I can see that. However, I will say too that there were a lot of people in Much Ado that I think fell short. I don't think only a couple people really crushed it, and that's Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. I think everybody else was kind of on a lower level, and they struggled. Even Denzel had moments where you're like, okay, come on, you can do better than that. There are moments where just everyone seemed fake, except for Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. I think they both knew it, through and through, and they were rehearsed, and they actually did a really good job. But everyone else, in my opinion, was a little bit underperformed.
Yeah.
And I think Keanu stood out as being probably the worst performance. But it's funny, the guys who played the other parts in Keanu's band of gang, members like Borachio and Conrad, those guys, they did a good job. Like, they were great. But I think that also kind of shows, they kind of upstaged Keanu a little bit, because they were believable and they did a good job. And so when Keanu was struggling and they were doing a good job, it kind of just made him look even worse. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I just want to point that out, that not everyone did a great job in Much Ado. In fact, a lot of them didn't kind of meet their mark.
Right. Well, I know, Branagh does that. He wants to, Shakespeare. Who's going to show up to see a Shakespeare movie and have it ring the box office bell? So he, especially with his Hamlet, he tries to cast everybody that would get people in theater seats. And so that doesn't always translate well. People can't always do Shakespeare. Like you said, it's tough. It's tough doing that stuff. So.
But I will say, with Much Ado, it was the first Shakespeare movie that I saw where I understood everything that was going on. And I was like, wow, I know what's happening. Like, I can tell what the character's motivation is. I know what they're doing. I know what's going on in the story. Like, everything fell into place for me when I first watched that movie. And so everything kind of clicked with Shakespeare for me after seeing that movie. And so it was kind of like, that kind of turned me on to Shakespeare, and I kind of fell in love with Shakespeare after watching that movie. So I kind of have that movie to thank for, my appreciation for Shakespeare.
Right. Well, yeah, it is very easy on the ears, and that movie especially easy on the eyes. But again, going back to Keanu, I always, it's hard to separate the actor from the person in real life. But when Keanu is as good in real life as you hear about, and you can actually see him in action. I know his sister suffered from leukemia, and so he opened a private cancer research facility, and he's had some drama in his past with his his girlfriend. I think in 1999 they had a baby that was stillborn, and then later, after they broke up, she died in a car accident after being treated for depression. And so he's had a lot of drama that's touched him. And then just recently, it's funny because he didn't. I want to say came out, but that sounds different than what I'm trying to go at. He came out with his girlfriend who's his age, and she's got gray hair, and people threw a fit because he was dating somebody his own age. And it's just, again, it goes to he's not movie starish. Like, he doesn't have an ego, and you can see that when he's on camera and when he's, interacting with people. And I can't be hard on him. Even though he doesn't always give great performances, I can't say, well, this guy sucks, because I admire that he tries, and I admire that he's just a good, solid person in real life. And it's the same with Alex Winter. Alex Winter hasn't had the same kind of career as Reeves, but he's, from what I understand, I haven't seen any of his documentaries, but he's a documentary filmmaker. He's got a lot of good documentaries on his belt.
I was going to mention that. He kind of went documentary route and had a successful career doing that, so that's commendable too.
Yeah, and he's an advocate for file sharing and internet privacy, and he directed music videos. He directed an Extreme video, and again, a lot of his document. He just directed a documentary about Frank Zappa, and had access to a bunch of musicians, and so that's impressive in his own right. One of his, I can't remember the name of it. He had a documentary that was, it was about. If I can find it here. Deep Web was the name of it. Dealt with, there was some dark web stuff that he dealt with, and Keanu Reeves actually narrated that documentary. So again, Alex Winter, he was in The Lost Boys, had some roles. He even acted. He was born in England, I believe, and so he acted in some Broadway plays when he came over to the States. So again, respectable. He's trying. He just hasn't. It's hard to see Alex Winter as John Wick, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when I first saw Bill and Ted's, the one scene that stood out to me was the mall scene. And the reason why it stood out was because of the music. And the funny thing about that is I didn't know at the time that the song behind the mall scene was an Extreme song, Play With Me, from their first album. I had no idea. This was before I even knew who Extreme was. And all I knew was I really enjoyed that scene. And looking back on it, I can see that it was because of the music. So I love that scene. However, I want to point this out. I did not like how they spliced it back and forth. I would much rather just have them start the song from the beginning and then just let it run through. They keep cutting the song here and there. I know they do it for a reason. I know, movies do that a lot where they will cut songs and they'll kind of interchange them in different spots and things. And that's fine. But like, for some reason, being a huge Extreme fan, I just want to hear the song all the way through. You know what I mean? So it's hard to watch that scene now because it's so, goes back and forth and it hopscotches back and forth from where it's at in the song. And so that's bothersome. But I still like the music. And it was later on that I realized that Alex Winter directed 3 or 4 actually, Extreme music videos. And it wasn't until I got involved with Extreme and I really started following them and I watched their little documentary that they made and saw that the directed credit was by Alex Winter. And I was like, Alex Winter? I was like, Bill? Bill directed this? And it kind of blew me away. So that's kind of where his career took him, like I said, music videos, documentaries. But he did do a movie called Freaked, right after Bill and Ted, I think. Did he direct it or just star in it? I think he might have directed it too.
He directed it, but it never got a wide release. I think Entertainment Weekly or some other news avenues, they got a hold of it and gave it some pretty good reviews, but it never got a wide release. So that at least got him some notoriety, got his foot in the door.
Right. But I think I just liked that Bill was the one who directed Extreme's music videos back in the day, so that was pretty cool.
Right. So what was your experience with, other than that, what was your experience with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the movie? Did you see it in a theater or on video, or why did you pick it this time?
Yeah, I picked it because I saw Face the Music, and so it reminded me of it, and I thought it'd be a good something to revisit. Not because I loved it by any means. Like I remember seeing it, not in the theater, but I did see it somewhere, I forget where. But it was good, and I remember saying that I liked it and I enjoyed it, but I didn't watch it all the time. It wasn't one that I revisited all the time, like other movies. But I still thought it was fun, and there's lots of things about it that I like. I like the music behind it. I like the time travel part. I think that's kind of fun. I want to talk about that too, about the time travel rules in Bill and Ted's, and as opposed to other movies. But overall, it was a fun movie. But like I said, it wasn't one that I wanted to revisit all the time. And watching it this time, I probably could say I enjoyed it more this time, only because I'm more willing to accept certain things, and I'm not as critical as I used to be. But yeah.
Okay.
What about you? What's your experience?
Well, I know I didn't see it in a theater. I remember seeing trailers for it, and I think the reason it caught my attention was Billy the Kid is one of the characters, and I'm a big Old West junkie, and I love that stuff. And I think around that time I was really into that Billy the Kid story, especially with Young Guns out in theaters, and so that's what made me want to see it. But I didn't get around to seeing it until video. I don't have memories of my first time watching it. I don't have negative feelings. I don't have positive feelings. I just know that I'd seen it. So I don't have a huge connection to it. But watching it this time, I think it's weird. I don't usually like doing this. I don't like talking about other movies when I'm trying to talk about a particular movie, because that doesn't really help. But I think in the context of this, when I was watching Excellent Adventure, I watched it with Elizabeth, and I remember smiling a lot of the time. It's amusing. There are parts that it's fun watching Keanu and Alex Winter. They're really likable, kids, and I like that they weren't bullied into the typical. Somebody said it's funny that the movie gets lugged in with these sex comedies of the 80s, and it's like, this movie is not doing that at all. They're not interested in betting people. I know they talk about babes and 69 dudes and all that, but when they meet the princesses, Ted asks, do you want to go to the prom? That's his main, concern. And so it's a very likable, amiable movie, but I didn't laugh once. And I think watching it, I didn't laugh out loud once. I think watching it, a lot of my fond memories of Bill and Ted come from the sequel, because we watched the sequel right after, and that I giggled all the way through that. It was just more daring, and it was more playful, and it took more chances, and it was just more my scene. Like, you look at Excellent Adventure, I don't think it's adventurously made. I don't know why it's made in widescreen, other than the fact that they have to get that shot of the auditorium at the end with their presentation. It always cracks me up when comedies try to go, because widescreen, I don't want to sound like a snob, but it gives like a feeling of like it's important. Yeah, prestige. Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't think that a lot of the movie warranted the widescreen. And, there's parts, where Missy makes them clean the house and it's all fast speed and it's cute, but it's like, well, that's, Elizabeth described it as cheesy, and there's no way around it. It is cheesy, and it's not inventive, I guess, besides the time travel stuff. It just didn't engage me on a visual or intellectual level. And I know that sounds funny saying that about Bill and Ted. You know what I mean? But just the way that Bogus Journey kind of, did the whole Seventh Seal thing, where it kind of deflated the whole image of, death as a serious figure that's playing chess with these guys. And just the fact that Bill and Ted, they he asked, challenge me to a game, and instead of playing chess like in the Bergman movie, they challenge him to Battleship, and they challenge him to Twister, and he keeps losing, and he keeps getting frustrated by these idiots that keep beating him at these games. It's just so perfectly funny. And again, the images of Bill and Ted falling to hell, and they fall forever, and then they just stop after a while, and they're like, because they have to catch their breath, and then they play 20 questions, and the whole movie is like that. It's just really playful, and I think that might have to do with directors, because Herek is an American director, and I don't think and then Peter Hewitt, I think his name is for the sequel. He's from England, and so he's got there's a Monty Python-ish kind of humor to the second one. I don't know if that makes any sense. How would you compare the second one to the first one? Does that even play into your thoughts on Excellent Adventure?
Well, yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that. I'm glad you brought it up, because Bogus Journey probably is my favorite too, and it's death who makes it for me. It's the scenes with death that make me laugh out loud. And there are a few moments here and there, but for the most part, I love the scenes with death when they're playing those games. And he's like, best 4 out of 7. He's like, damn right. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, it always makes me laugh. And so I like that character. And I like this William Sadler doing it. I think that's awesome. The guy from Shawshank Redemption, is playing death. I think that's great. And I like that he came back and faced the music too. He was great in that as well.
Well, even if the only part that I liked of Bogus Journey was the death scenes, that at least got me laughing out loud, and it's just very clever and just perfectly designed and perfectly deployed, all the comedy in there. Even if it was just that 20-minute stretch, it's still, again, I don't want to be negative towards X, because it's fine. There's nothing offensive about it. It's just not engaging in a way that I guess I wanted it to be. And especially, I feel bad, but the whole movie I was like, the second one would have done it this way, or stuff like that. And so I don't know, it's just more engaging intellectually and with the humor and everything. But still, there's a lot to take from it. I like that it is very good humor. Even the Missy character in another sex comedy movie, she would have been this buxom blonde with like cleavage out to here, but she's just normal looking. The part where Bill and Ted are ogling her, it's in good humor. I think she's not skanky, and I like that her character's even, she drives them everywhere. She's so willing to please and make sure that they like her. I like when she's doing the gardening, and they all show up in the phone booth. I thought that was really funny, and they all come out, and there's all these weird historical figures, and she's nonplussed by it. She's like, just make sure you do your chores. She's very good humored, even though there's the underlying sex stuff underneath it with the dad and everything. But that was another thing too. I liked that when they went time traveling, like nobody cared that they were wearing different clothes. Like, it didn't affect anybody. Like, they show up in Billy the Kid's time, and he's like, all right, play some cards. Nobody has any reaction to that kind of stuff at all. Did you find that funny, or did that bug you?
I didn't really notice it, to be honest, until you just brought it up. Like I didn't even think that was, maybe I was just like them and didn't even notice their clothes. But while we're on time travel, let's talk about that, because the time travel rules in this movie, it seems like when they travel through time, like nothing changes in the present when they change. However, other movies, if you travel back in time or forward in time and you make a change, it affects the present. It affects where you're at, and then things change. So what do you think about that? How their time travel didn't really affect anything, didn't really change much, other than making sure their keys are in the trash can were in the right places. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that was clever. I think Ed Solomon's dead, one of the screenwriters. Oh, I wanted to mention that the two guys that wrote it, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. Chris Matheson is the son of Richard Matheson, who's a very famous science fiction author. Wrote a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes. Just very renowned for a lot of stories and well-known sci-fi. And then Ed Solomon wrote Men in Black in 1997, which is one of the funniest, most thematically tight blockbusters that I can think of. But I know that Solomon did interviews, especially with the part where they're like, well, what do we do like with the keys? And they're like, how about we like go back and like we leave the keys behind the sign? And that's a budget. They made their way around a budget and a plot hole to be able, and they came up with that on the fly. I thought that was really clever. And when you compare to other time travel, I think Back to the Future might be the time travel movie you compare it to, which is funny because in the original drafts of the movie, they were driving around in a 1969 van, Chrysler van, I believe, and then they changed it because it was too similar. But then they changed it to a phone booth, which is a lot like the TARDIS in Doctor Who. But then back in the 80s, I don't want to say that Doctor Who wasn't big at the time, because I remember my mom watching Doctor Who and the Daleks, or the old BBC TV series that looked like it was, again, shot on a stage. So I knew Doctor Who from childhood, but the filmmakers say that they weren't familiar with Doctor Who at all when they came up with the phone booth idea, which is fine. It's not really, even if it was an homage, it's still kind of clever the way they kind of tweak all the time, previous time movies. But it's a choice. They decided, when we do time travel, this is our mythology. It doesn't affect the future. When we bring Abraham Lincoln or you bring Joan of Arc back, it's not going to change history, and you'll start hearing them talk about these two white dudes that came to visit them. So it didn't bother me at all. It's just the conceit of the movie that's what they decided to do.
Yeah.
The other one, I liked Frequency, how that dealt with the time switch, because when Caviezel's character would have Quaid's character change the past, it would affect his memories, and Caviezel would remember both as being real. And so that was another interesting take too. But did it bother you that it didn't affect time, or were there other time travel movies that I haven't mentioned that it reminded you of?
No, it didn't bother me, but it was just kind of like, why aren't things changing? Why aren't things different? Because they are taking Abraham Lincoln and Socrates, out of their home and bringing them to the present, and then, why there should be some kind of change. Something should be affected by that, but it's not. However, I just wrote it off and didn't even think about it. But the other movies, like there's one I can think of called Primer. That was like a really low budget independent movie all about time travel. That's actually quite confusing. If you don't really follow it closely, the time travel can get really, really, convoluted and kind of confusing. But it's a smart movie though, a very smart movie. But it's stuff like that I kind of thought should be in there, but it really would have made the movie more complicated than it needed to be. It's not really a movie about time travel. It's a movie about, music, I would say. Like that's kind of the main theme is the music. And so, but talking about music, this has always bothered me. I've never liked it when I see a movie and there's, a band on stage, or there's someone playing guitar or playing the drums, or something's going on and they're off with the music that you're hearing. So they're not on the beat, or they're not playing the right notes with their fingers, or the lip sync is off, or something's weird like that. So did you notice that in this movie that there were times when they were playing and they might have been off, or not Bill and Ted, but the other people on stage that were playing?
Well, I didn't notice that stuff, but then again, I'm not a musician. I don't know, like if they do at least the motions, like it's believable to me. I don't know if I have a lot of things that I get hung up on. I don't want to say that it's not, I don't want it to sound like you shouldn't get hung up because you're a musician and that's the kind of thing that you notice. But other than, when they do, or here's a character that's looking at an old photo of himself from 30 years ago and it's obviously photoshopped,
Yeah.
It looks fake, that kind of thing always bugs me. Or when product placement becomes too obvious, like in James Bond movies. or The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and stuff like that, where it's obvious, oh, this was made by Sony because there's the 5th time I've seen a Sony logo, or oh, there's the Blu-ray logo because I know Sony did that. That kind of stuff I always notice. But no, I know we talked in the past about how you think it's funny how, like in Back to the Future again, how he's able just to the Starlighters or whatever, or the Marvin Berry's band is able to just play along with them even though they never heard the song before and be perfect at it. But what were some of the parts where it did that in this one? And are there movies that actually have done it right?
Well, first of all, the ones that have done it right, and I think we mentioned this, you and I in the past, is that thing you do. They actually learn their instruments. They learn the song. They were playing the right notes. They were playing the right chords. And they might have been playing to playback, but they were actually playing their instruments at the same time, even though they probably weren't plugged in or anything. But it's fun to see the drummer actually hit the drum and hit the cymbal and know that things are actually working right and they're playing it correctly. But when I see a movie where someone's playing an instrument and they're doing it wrong, I can't even watch it. I just go, do it right. But in Bill and Ted's, there actually is a moment at the end, and this is actually, obviously a guitar double. I'm not sure who they got to do it, but when George Carlin plays that solo at the end, obviously it's not George Carlin playing it because they cut away and you see the fingers moving, but the fingers moving are actually playing the solo. So it's played right and it's played well. And so I don't mind that kind of stuff when they use a body double or whatever. That's fine. I just don't like seeing it when they're way off and they completely have no idea what they're doing. One example I can think of is a movie called Sweet and Lowdown with Sean Penn. He plays a guitarist. And there's a scene where he's playing, a lot of scenes where he's playing, but he's playing this scene and he does fairly well for the most part, trying to act like he's doing it right. But then there are moments where he's just completely off and you go, okay, you practiced enough to get through it, but not enough to really look like you're proficient at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, anyway, yeah, it's just something that I always notice.
Mr. Holland's Opus, I know that's really musical. So speaking of Stephen Herek, did they do a good job in that one from what you remember?
As far as I can remember, yes, they all played their instruments correctly in that movie. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I think even how they do, even the lackadaisical playing, I think it ties in with the rest of the movie. I think it's all of a piece. Like another thing that didn't really, and again talking about the time travel stuff and how nothing really mattered, and how they just kind of show up and then let's get Joan of Arc out of there, let's get the Socrates out of there, or Socrates out of there, let's get Beethoven out of there, and it doesn't. They give you just enough to, that was back in the 14th century, or that's back in the medieval times. And speaking of which, when they go back to the medieval times, I had here that I was watching it thinking that this is kind of an Army of Darkness feel. It doesn't really feel like actual medieval times. But then I thought, talking about Bogus Journey, how it has a Monty Python Holy Grail kind of feel. Roy Ford Smith, who actually did the set design, the art direction for Holy Grail, he did the art direction for this, so he helped design a lot of the medieval stuff. So that even tied in. And so I felt bad because Holy Grail, one of the funniest things about that movie to me is it looks like an authentic. It looks like it's made in the medieval times. It looks like, aside from the professor and the police stuff and all that, it looks like an actual medieval movie that took itself very seriously, even though all this fun comedy stuff is. But going back to the lackadaisical stuff, the whole movie didn't engage me that way. I know that, look, the antenna's damaged, and then they just fix it with gum. Or how did they plan that whole entire presentation? They didn't show. It's very elaborately done. And when did they have time to plan that and pull it off and practice it so perfectly? You know what I mean? And it's
and there's lighting cues and there's sound cues.
But that's the whole movie, though. It's very lackadaisical, and I have the notes in here. Man, for a lot of their time travel plans doesn't require a lot of planning. Like they just kind of do stuff, and it comes naturally to them. And even the part I wrote down too is like, is this really a thing in high schools? Do they have an entire auditorium of students that sit around and watch an entire day of historical presentations? So the whole movie is like that, and after a while you stop asking, you just go with it, and it's silly, harmless fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I guess overall, what do we think? I know I enjoyed it again. I probably enjoyed it more this time. It was fun to go back and revisit it and to hear the rock soundtrack behind it, and I enjoyed all that aspect of it. So for me, I would say it's worth remembering because, again, I think Bill and Ted, they're iconic, they're memorable, they are definitely a part of our history, of our culture. Even people still go party on. You know what I mean? However, you can even say that Wayne's World, stole that with the whole party on Wayne, party on Garth. It came from Bill and Ted first. So definitely worth remembering for me, even though I probably won't end up watching it again for another 20 years.
Okay. Well, I know that. Again, I don't want to sound negative or because again, I didn't dislike the movie. I put a feeler out on Facebook and Twitter, to see if anybody could quote their favorite quotes and stuff like that. So I just wanted to read a few of those before I let you know what my opinion is. Just a couple of things. Kyle says the number one, I got this a couple times, strange things are afoot at the Circle K. A lot of people like that. The philosophize with him. I thought that was funny, when they go to see Socrates and he says, we're dust in the wind, and he quotes Kansas. And then Socrates, it's a smart joke. He comes back and says something in Latin to them. And what it translates as is, these like sands to the hourglass, these are the days of our lives. which is the soap opera, obviously. Let's see, Darby Lynn, they liked the air guitar sounds, when they do that. Tanisha says, don't forget to wind your watch, or whoa, and stuff like that. I've got a friend on Twitter, Elisar, who says that my brother lives down the street from a Circle K, and every time we drive past it, I say to him, dude, strange things are afoot at the Circle K. I'm told it's very annoying. So it's a well-known movie, and people have a lot of good memories of it. Again, just going back and talking about it, there are amusing bits. I did like some of the comedy parts. I liked how kind of Billy the Kid and Socrates became like best buds. Yeah, there's kind of the story going on in the background where they become really, and there's some background jokes. Like you can see them at one part passing a football back and forth as Bill and Ted are trying to discuss the plot. There's a part where Freud and Billy and Socrates are trying to pick up those girls in the mall, and Freud is holding that corn dog, and as he realizes he's losing the girls, the corn dog droops. Which is, again, very Freudian, that's what he's known for. And then I like the, Bill says something about his Oedipal complex at the end, talking with Freud and stuff like that. And there's even a fun little joke during that presentation where Napoleon is doing like a presentation of a plan, and a battle plan that he would do. And Ted looks at him and goes, I don't think that would work. And that's because it's Napoleon is actually outlining the French invasion of Russia, which was a notorious failure on his part. So he kind of gets upset. So anyway, there's a lot of, funny little jokes that you notice. But like I mentioned before, it was more amusing than it was funny. It was more a smile movie. And like I said, there isn't anything adventurous about the filmmaking. It is just what it is. And I hate to compare it unfavorably, but Bogus Journey is where my heart is. That's the one where it just gets me, and I love the characters, and it has the rambunctious kind of Hell's a Poppin' kind of feel that I think this movie was missing. So even without that, though, I think it's kind of a forgettable movie. It's likable, but it's forgettable, and so I would say it's worth a remake. Okay. But then they made a sequel to it, and then I haven't seen Face the Music yet, but it's on my list of things. It's on like 832 of my must watch movies, but it's on there. And it's a legacy, and so even without Excellent Adventure, I would still have Bogus Journey to have, and Face the Music to look forward to. So worth a remake for me. Not that it's, again, I get why people like it, but just it didn't engage me as much as I guess it should have.
All right, well, that's fair enough. I wanted to do this on our little outro, and we can come back to this, but I wanted to do like a top 3 list of Keanu Reeves' best movies, and then a top 3 of his worst movies. So we'll come back and we'll do our top 3 best Keanu Reeves and our top 3 worst Keanu Reeves. So we'll come back in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Not bad.
Greetings, my excellent friends.
Do you know when the Mongols ruled China?
Wow. Perhaps we could ask them. Bill S. Preston, Esquire. And Ted Theodore Logan. Gentlemen, I'm here to help you with your history report.
What? How?
Oh, I hate that part.
Bill? What? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Okay, welcome back. I know we may have forgotten a few things we wanted to mention. So, Darin, is there anything that you wanted to mention that we forgot to during the meat of our conversation?
Well, I think, Excellent Adventure is not a movie that requires a lot of deep think, so there's not really a lot of philosophical stuff I want to go back over. I did realize that I kind of glossed over the Richard Matheson part. Again, so we mentioned that Chris Matheson, who co-wrote this. No, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, they wrote the screenplays for all 3 Bill and Ted movies, and I don't think that's the norm as far as franchises go. But as far as Richard Matheson, I forgot to mention, we've talked about What Dreams May Come. He came up with he wrote the story for that. Steven Spielberg's Duel, he wrote the story for that one. Somewhere in Time, I know that's really big with a lot of our female listeners and watchers. Yeah, I kind of have the same. Maybe I need to watch it again. I'll have a different. Maybe we'll make that a movie and we'll bring Ruth
What
back
we
on.
should do is we should invite one of our friends on the show, and he can pick that movie and we can talk about it. I know.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Okay, we can do that. Okay. So again, he's Real Steel. He just did that. Like you talked about, A Stir of Echoes, which I actually enjoy more than The Sixth Sense as far as filmmaking goes. But yeah, Richard Matheson, really big stalwart science fiction fantasy author, and so I wanted to be sure that we did a shout out to that, especially since we talked about What Dreams May Come in a previous episode. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, you asked me about an example in the movie where a musician was playing the wrong notes, and I thought of it after we ended, and that was Beethoven in the mall scene. Beethoven's, just kind of fingering on the keyboards there, and he's obviously not playing it right. And obviously it's guitar, not a keyboard. So anyway, it's that's one of the things that I noticed throughout the movie is that the lip syncing instrument playing didn't always match up with what you were hearing. So
right, and I do like how if Bill and Ted are meant to save the world, they're being slackers about it. I guess by Face Music, they still haven't gotten around to writing that song that'll unite the universe. So I did like that aspect of it too.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And before we close out, I want to do a quick little top 3 favorite or best performances of Keanu Reeves and top worst 3 performances of Keanu Reeves. So I'll go ahead and go first. I'll go with what I think is his very best performance, and that's got to be Neo in The Matrix. That's where I came down on that one. What'd you think?
Why would you say that's his defining performance?
Well, I think because it doesn't require a whole lot as far as not maybe it's like the emotion doesn't have to be there as much as maybe a Shakespeare movie would require, and maybe the dialogue isn't the most profound or hard to deliver. So it's easier for him to do, and he's good at that. And I think the physical part of the character is also there, and I think he's good at that too. And I just love that character. So I think he does a great job in that movie as Neo.
Okay. We're doing a top 3 of these, right? So you do one. Okay. So I think I'll go in order again. I think Parenthood, I mentioned briefly when we're in between recordings that I don't know if I'd count it as a Keanu Reeves movie, but he's in it. And Parenthood is it's probably Ron Howard, next to Apollo 13, it's probably Ron Howard's most proficient movie, one that feels most like a movie to me. And it's funny watching Keanu in that one. He's Ted, except as an actual, it's like Ted in the real world. He's the same surfer dude. He's kind of shirking his responsibilities, but it's a lot tougher, with the marriage and stuff like that and children. And so it's feels more real. And he has that part where he goes and talks to Joaquin Phoenix's character, the troubled little kid, and comes out and talks to Diane Wiest about, he has that whole monologue about, Mrs. Buckman, they'll let any person, you have to go out and you have to get a license to own a dog, or you have to have a license to drive, or you have to have a license to catch a fish, but they'll let any blooming a-hole be a father. And it was just really profound. And he delivered that in a way that was like, yes, he's Ted, but he's capable of grasping, more truths about life. And so that would be my first top Keanu performance.
Okay. You want to go to the top worst next, or you want to go into number 2 of top best?
Let's just do that. My brain is not working, so let's just stick with the best, then we'll go with the worst.
Right. Okay, so next I'm going to pick John Wick, and you can any one of them. But I really enjoy these movies. I really enjoy, again, I think the physicality that he pulls off in these movies is just, amazing. And what it takes to do something like that is just, it's hard to do. And so I really appreciate the martial arts and the gun work and everything that he does and the choreography that they put into it. And again, it's a movie that doesn't really require a whole lot of emotion, but yet there is emotion in this one. I think he's got a lot of nuances that if you're not looking for it, you won't see it, but it's there. And so I think he nails it in John Wick.
Okay. My second, I like that you're mentioning The Matrix. I like that you're mentioning John Wick, so we don't have to double up and we can kind of have a broader spectrum of it. But I think my second one would be My Own Private Idaho, the Gus Van Sant movie. Just acting with River Phoenix, and it's a very real performance. It doesn't feel like a performance, I guess you could say. He plays a hustler and stuff like that, and it's a very tough movie. Again, it's not an easy watch, but as far as Keanu Reeves trying to do serious dramatic work, I think it works for that movie. If you were to say, how is he as a dramatic actor? I think you sit someone down and show him that movie, and it really it affects you, and it's a very human movie. So that would be my second pick.
Okay. So third for me, now this is kind of a not so well-known movie, and it's one of his first movies that he ever did. And I saw it a long time ago, and I remember being really impressed by it and really moved by it. It's a movie called Permanent Record, and it's not that his performance is that great. It's good. It's good. It's not bad. And I think that was kind of like, signs that he could be a good actor. But it's just what the movie's about, and what it's about. These two friends. One's really successful, really smart, really talented, got everything going for him. And then there's one who Keanu Reeves plays is the, kind of slacker, lackadaisical type character. And the one who you think has everything going for him ends up committing suicide. And then you have Keanu Reeves' character like dealing with the trauma of that. And so there is a lot of drama there, and it's fun to watch, even though it's hard to watch it sometimes. But again, it has the music element too. So he's in this band with them, and he's a guitar player. And so that was always fun for me to watch that too. But like I say, I don't think it was like maybe his best performance, but you could see that he had talent, and he actually, had the potential to be really great. And the movie itself is really, really an interesting movie. And so I would recommend it to people if they want to find something that's like, kind of obscure and kind of like, older, and one of Keanu Reeves' first performances. It kind of reminds me of a movie I saw with Ben Affleck back in the day. It was a short film that Ben Affleck did about steroids, and that kind of caught me off guard too, because Ben Affleck was really good in that movie. But it was a short film, and it wasn't really it didn't really get a wide release or anything like that. But it showed that Ben Affleck could act, and so that kind of like reminds me of the same thing that Permanent Record did for Keanu Reeves with me. Permanent Record, like I say, is not well known, but it's a performance that is respectable, and it shows that he was going somewhere in his career.
Right. Well, a couple of things too. I don't think we mentioned that Keanu Reeves is actually in a band, Dog Star, right? He has his own alternative rock band. So there's obviously that personal that he kind of takes from that. So for my third favorite, I did want to mention a couple of honorable mentions that I couldn't kind of kick out. Constantine, I liked him in that. It's not a great movie, but I liked his sardonic. He can pull off that, the sardonic kind of dark humor. I thought he was really good in that. I did like him just recently. He was in that romantic comedy Always Be My Maybe that was on Netflix, where he had like an elongated cameo and that kind of played on his star persona. He was really funny, and it takes a real deft comedian to be able to play off your own persona like he did in that one. But the third top performance, you mentioned Matrix and John Wick. I would pick Speed as far as his action status goes, because that was the first movie that he was in. I think he was in Point Break before, but he played a surfer dude, so it didn't really do much for me. But seeing him in Speed and seeing him play like the action star, just showing up and just being able to get the job done, that's when I was like, this he could have a career in action movies. I think this is where his future lies. And then he proved us right in The Matrix and John Wick. So now the fun part. What about the about the worst Keanu performances?
All right. Well, for the worst, I put Walk in the Clouds as the number one for me. Walk in the Clouds was just painful. I don't know how I got through it. I could barely watch that movie. It was so bad. Not just the movie as itself, but his performance was just so bad.
Okay. Yeah, that's a rough one.
I think I saw that at your house actually, and I remember just being like, just kind of writhing in pain as I was watching it. Like, I've been watching this.
Let's do something else. I'd rather like shove knives into my eyes instead of. Yeah. Okay. I don't. It's not one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I know what you're talking about. It's just not my cup of tea. As far as bad performances go, the first one, again going in order, I've got Jonny Mnemonic, which is his first foray into. Oh boy. He's not only bad, the entire movie is just bad. I know it's got Dolph Lundgren in it as a preacher, and I think we saw that.
We saw that one together, yeah.
Oh, it's one of those movies where I hear the name and I'm like, oh gosh, like that was a thing. So I don't necessarily his performance. He does what he can, but that whole movie was just rancid. It just that whole, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. What was your second worst?
Number 2 is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Again, I saw that at your house. What's funny about that is we saw 3 movies this one night. We watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, then we watched From Dusk Till Dawn, and we watched True Romance, all in the same night. You remember that night? We watched like 3 movies like back to back to back, and the sun came up, and I was like, the sun just came up? And I remember just kind of feeling so kind of icky after watching all those movies back to back to back like that. And yeah, but Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think, is by far, his English accent is just horrific in that movie.
Right. Well, I adore Bram Stoker's Dracula as a movie. I think it's very well put together, and it's very central, and it's just the way that Coppola did the special effects, and I don't know. I just adore the movie itself. But yeah, Keanu sticks out like a sore thumb, which we talked about. Again, talking with bad performances, I don't think he hasn't, besides maybe Jonny Mnemonic, he hasn't starred in any movies that I would put at the bottom of my list of movies ever made, like the worst movies. Yeah, Mnemonic is probably the one that dives deep. But again, like we said before, I just have too much respect for him to actually hate him. But the next one that I didn't enjoy Sweet November.
Okay.
It was just very saccharine, very predictable. I know Jason Isaacs puts in a good performance, and he's very energetic. But we talked about Back to the Future. I don't know if, probably it started way before this. But you know how Marty McFly at the beginning is like, I'm never going to be able to play in front of a crowd. And then by the end, he plays in front of a crowd, right? There's a part in Sweet November where I think it's Charlize Theron. She's dying of cancer, and he falls in love with her. And there's a part at the beginning where he goes, I've never sang in front of an audience before. And I just remember going, oh, no. We're going to have to hear Keanu Reeves like croon by the end of this movie. And then that's exactly what happens. But yeah, Sweet November is my second choice there. Just didn't enjoy it.
Okay. Well, third for me, we mentioned it in the episode, and that's Much Ado About Nothing. And again, I remember like watching it together, and just both of us kind of like laughing or kind of cringing whenever he would deliver a line. And maybe it's not so much him, but who was around him and who he was acting with. I think maybe the co-stars he had with him were better than he was, and so he kind of fell short there.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, we talked about that, so we don't need to dig him a deeper grave there. But I think my final choice, I have Matrix Revolutions as my third least favorite Keanu performance. Kind of rounding it out, I know, like we talked about, Keanu's very good as Neo, and he's the stoic, and I think I like him especially in Reloaded. He's the epitome of cool in that, just the way he's dressed and the way he's able to fight, and he's just so cool and calm, and like we'd expect a karate or a kung fu legend or our savior to be, a savior of the world. And just Revolutions, number one, it's a movie that we dig on the sequels a lot. I think they ran out of ideas by the time that third one came around. It didn't do it for me. Like they're fighting against they're waging war against the machines by fighting in machines. That was weird. There's a part at the beginning where they're fighting in the club, and we've seen the slow-mo fights in the Matrix before, but then the bad guys flip over and they start fighting from the ceiling. And so I remember going, oh, we're doing this now. I guess we've officially run out of ideas. But then when you talk about Keanu being stoic, when he's required to act by the end of the movie, especially when Trinity dies, and it's just, oh boy, like it doesn't work. Like it's the opposite of where he started out as, and it's like you want to see Keanu being stoic and cool, and you don't it's the opposite of what you want to see. Just him like sobbing and being all dramatic. So I don't know. I just thought the Matrix movies kind of fizzled out. It's one of those things where I enjoy parts of Reloaded, but like the Pirates movies or other movies like that, they just should have stopped at the first one, and it would have had a much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Impression. So yeah, that's my third.
Okay. Well, that's it then.
Yeah. Like I said, nothing. He's not the worst actor. I just want to go back to the idea that he tries. He's trying to do different things. He tries to push himself. Holy crap, I admire that. Like most people don't even try. And we talk about Bruce Willis now, and he's not even bothering putting in any performances. It's just so disheartening. And I like seeing what Keanu has to do. Like, yeah, I'll watch him in anything. I just enjoy him as a person and as a persona on screen. Yeah,
well, I think we got Matrix 4 and John Wick 4 to look forward to. So there's that.
Hopefully that won't ruin anything for us even more. So yeah, once this, we'll have to wait and see.
All right, man. So tell us what we're doing next week.
Okay, well, I was kind of conflicted. I had an idea to maybe do a James Bond movie, since James Bond was big for me growing up. But I think with No Time to Die coming out in April, maybe we'll move it and have it kind of closer to there. So the other movie I thought of mentioning Billy the Kid today and talking about how big I was on that. Let's watch Young Guns. It'll kind of go into my history of why I love the Billy the Kid story. And I kind of want to talk about how, history versus fiction and how well it does the story. And so that could be something we could talk about. Young Guns, 1988. Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, Dermot Mulroney, Lou Diamond Phillips, just a cast of actors that were big back in the day. I know we've talked about the Rat Pack, the Brat Pack before with teen movies. So let's talk about how they do in an Old West setting.
All right, that sounds fun. All right, then, for NostalgiaCast, be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.